Spiritual Gumbo. Let's step back into the Maccabees. This will be the first official part. I'm starting in chapter 3 because I officially did the first 2 chapters and I won't go back and read them so that way I don't bore you to death. But we're going to start at verse 1 of chapter 3 and we're going to read the entire chapter. I want to say it's about 60 verses, something like that. Might be a couple words in here that I don't remember. I've read all this stuff before, so just me reading it again, getting another understanding as I read it, maybe even a better one. I'm going to point out a couple things that language is everything, but I will point it out as I get there. So here we go. And right now, this is talking about the death of Matthias, and so then his son Judas, called Maccabees, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him. So did all they that held with his father, and they fought with Chilphrenus the battle of Israel. So he gat his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him, and he made battles, protecting the host with his sword. Stop right there. So as I said before, the host is, in my mind, the host of heaven, heavenly host, and there's many of them. Now, a feeble-minded person will tell you that the host is the multitude or the camp of people that they're with. Keep that in mind. That's feeble-minded. That's to try to take away from the greatness of what is taking place, and to also attempt to make very layman certain actions that are very awesome and extreme, be it they bad, be it they good, holy or unholy. And it says right here in verse 4, in his acts he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp, roaring for his prey. So they steal 2 pieces from 2 different pieces of a prophecy and a blessing. One from Judah, the other one from Judah and Dan. But it is what it is. For he pursued the wicked, and sought them out, and burnt those that vexed his people. Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because salvation prospered in his hand. He grieved also many kings, and made Jacob glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. Stop right there. So what this guy was doing, as I'm saying, they take a couple parts from these other books to describe what he was doing, but in the reality of it, these people, whoever wrote this part of it, loved Judas Maccabeus. We're going to keep it pushing. Moreover, verse 8, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away the wrath from Israel, so that he removed unto the utmost part of the earth, and turning away wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned, there we go, unto the utmost part of the earth. So, wherever he was at, wherever the utmost area is on earth, so they're not saying that he's known everywhere, but on the utmost part of the planet, he's known about. Like wherever they know, wherever the distance is, he's known. You know what I'm saying, and he's known at the highest point where people are getting down. And I would assume that those are the barbarians who know about him. But I'm gonna just keep it pushing. Verse 9. No, I'm going to start at verse 8 again. Moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth. And he received unto him such as were ready to perish. And he received unto him such as were ready to perish. So let me just go ahead and take that two ways, because it doesn't really say uh, how it goes as those who were ready to perish and how he received them. There was the one end where he's killing people because they were ready to die. Like they chose to die. Then there's the other end where people are joining him because they're not afraid to die. Right? They're ready. It's a good day. But I'm gonna assume that it's more toward the first than the second. Verse 30. Verse 10. Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles. Some of these numbers be looking so funny in the Septuagint. Now, when it says Gentiles right here, does it say where the Gentiles come from? Has anybody ever actually got a specific locale where they come from or who they are? No, the term is used so broadly, right, that it's just safer to say that they are a consortium of peoples. However, let me keep it pushing. Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together and a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel, which thing when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. And many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Wherefore Judas took their spoils, and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long. So he took Apollonius' sword, and after that he fought with this dude's sword. Right on. And whoever this great host is, he went to go see these dudes. Now you got to understand. You guys got to really get what's going on here. They're boistering up this dude, but you have to realize these warlike people who wouldn't suffer peace in the region. So to him, any kind of revolt is good. And this was an all-out insurgency. You guys, this is like ISIS. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be rude to them or whatever you want to call them, but this is like the comparison. You come to my home, I'm not taking it. And I'm not saying that this is a good or bad thing, but this is how you have to look at it. So, and then you have all these other groups, just like these guys have in other nations, where these guys aren't even really from your nation, but they are empathetic and sympathetic to your struggle, and they also believe what you believe, supposedly. It makes a coalition much easier. You gotta think these guys were born around these people. It wasn't like they had never seen barbarians before. They grew up seeing these people because they grew up not in the kingdom. Some of these guys, so they grew up seeing these dudes because already the barbarians were coming down from the mountains fighting against the Romans and the Grecians. Right. You guys got to put this stuff in historical context. What was going on? So they were fighting against the barbarians coming from the north, right? So the people from the utmost part of the earth knew about them. Right, the same guys that were coming down, who joined themselves to his father. Those same kind of guys from the utmost part of the earth. I'm just trying to break it down to you so that way you really get where I'm going. Let's keep it pushing. Verse 13. Now when Siren, a prince of the army of Syria, heard that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and company of the faithful, to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom, and I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him, who despise the king's commandment. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him, and to be avenged of the children of Israel. And when he came near to going of Betharon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, who then they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude, and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day? Unto whom Judas answered, it is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and with the God of heaven it is all one, to deliver a great multitude or a small company. For the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength cometh from heaven. They come against us and much pride and iniquity to destroy us, and our wives and children, and to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our lives. Wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be ye not afraid of them. Now as soon as he left off speaking, he leaped suddenly upon them, and to Saron he leaped suddenly upon them, and so Saron and his hosts were overthrown before him. But they pursued them from going down of Betharon unto the plain, where where were slain about 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines. Then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them. Insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of the battles of Judas. Now when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army. He opened up also his treasure, and gave unto his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them. Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tribute in the country was small, because of dissension and plague which he had brought upon the land, and taking away the laws which had been of old time, he feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before. For he had abounded above the kings that were before him. Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries, and to gather much money. Stop off right there. So what it just said was that because this dude allowed for these guys to do whatever that he wanted them to do, right? The temples aren't getting any money anymore. Ain't nobody following nothing. Ain't nobody doing nothing. We're not. The only reason why they were getting money the way they were is because people were following the laws, and they were able to go and hit the church up. But you see how do you see how his mind is when he wants to get tributary? They go and they lay down the hand on cats. They put the force on them. But let's just keep it pushing. No, one more thing. Realize how this dude's about to go into Persia, right? And he's already made his mind up about it because he didn't gave out too much money to all these cats talking about be ready whenever. You know, trying to be a boss. It's just so funny. It's the same stuff today. Anyway, we're going to keep it pushing. So he left Lysias, a nobleman, and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done, also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem, to wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place, and that he should place strangers in all their quarters, and divide their land by lot. So the king took half of the forces that remained, and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year, and he passed the river Euphrates, and went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dormenes, and Nicanor, and Gorgias, mighty men, and Gorgias, I want to say, mighty men of the king's friend. And with them he sent 40,000 footmen, and 7,000 horsemen, to go into the land of Judah, and to destroy it, as the king commanded. So they went forth with all their power, and came and pitched by Emmaus in the plain country. And the merchants of the country, hearing of the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves. You hear that? And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much very much, with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves. A power also of Syria and of the land of the Philistines joined themselves unto them. Now when Judas and his brethren saw that miseries were multiplied, and that the forces did encamp themselves in the borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed estate of our people, and let us fight for our people in the sanctuary. Then the congregation gathered together, that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray, and ask mercy and compassion. Now when Jerusalem was laid void as a wilderness, there were none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold, and the heathen had their habitations in that place. And the joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together, and came to Maspah over against Jerusalem, for Maspah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day, and put on sackcloth and ashes upon their heads, and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. They brought also the priest garments, and the first fruits, and the tithes, and the Nazarites they stirred up, who accomplished their days, who had accomplished their days. Then cried they with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these? And whither shall we gather them? And whither shall we carry them away? For thy sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness, and brought low. And lo, the heathen that's right. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, thou knowest. How shall we be able to stand up against them, except thou, our God, be our help? Stop right there. So they're saying right now that they don't know what the heck to do. They're not in Jerusalem. There's a small number of people in Jerusalem who've capitulated. Believe it or not, those guys that are there are people who sold out, and they're Benjamites, more than likely. Okay? With that said, the majority of these are the people not right now who are being talked about are Israelites. They're not Jews or Israeli or Israelitish or Jewish. They're Israelites. So these are the people. Okay. And even more, it speaks on the Nazarites real quick. But it says, thy sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low. So it's just saying right now that the priests are in a state of decay. Right? And this is coming from a dude who's coming from a Levite bloodline. He's a true Levite. He knows what they're in right now. He knows the situation. And this is at a point when the other tribes are in Assyria right now. Right. They've already been deported. So you have guys who are, in like Nineveh and stuff like that. And it's all spread out through the empire of what the Assyrians owned. However, let's just keep it pushing. Verse 53. How shall we be able to stand against them? Except thou be our God. Except thou, our God, be our help. Then sounded they with trumpets, and cried with a loud voice. And after this Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, and over hundreds, and over fifties, and over tens. But as for such as were building houses, and had betrothed wives, or were planting vineyards, or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return, every man to his own house according to the law. So the camp removed and pitched upon the south side of the mount, and Judas said, arm yourselves, and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with the nations that are assembled together against us to destroy us. and our sanctuary. For it is better to die in battle than to behold the calamities of our people and our sanctuary. Nevertheless, as the will of God is in heaven, so let him do. I'm going to end it right there. But you know what? I'll give you a couple more verses from the next chapter because I'm going to read it all over anyway. Give you a few verses into that and see what you're going to get into. Then Gorgias, who's one of those three mighty men, right? Then took Gorgias 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen. So listen, out of the 7,000, they brought 1,000 of the best one, right? And removed them out of the camp by night, to the end that he might rush into the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. Now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army which was at Emmaus, while as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. Stop right there. So we're just going to keep it pushing tomorrow, and it's going to go down ever more. I'm ready. I'm ready to tell the truth. Shame the devil. All that stuff. I think today was very interesting. I think we're getting closer to why I said what I said about give unto Caesar. When you guys see what happened with these Romans and how the Greeks and the Romans played the Israelites together into the death trap, you guys will see it and you guys will be like, damn. I don't condone what these gentlemen have done as far as, just acting all on their own, because Joshua did that. And look what that did for Joshua. It didn't do anything good. There are so many different actions. Sarah, where she acted on her own. One of the times that Abraham acted on his own, and a lot of people really don't see it, is when he actually pleads for the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Because if he doesn't do that, then the Moabites and the Ammonites would have never been born. There are so many different situations I could actually point out that fall into this. However, I have taken much of your time, and I'm glad that you have given me your time. The book of the Maccabees shall be continued. Spiritual Gumbo, out.